Well, hello and welcome to this tutorial. My name is Matt Kelver, and today we're going to be looking at chest drain systems. In particular, we're going to look at the components of a chest drain and how to set up one for procedural use. Join me in a later video, we'll actually talk about some of the common pitfalls with managing chest drainage systems and offer some tips and tricks to mitigate those problems. But for today, let's begin by collecting our supplies. We'll of course need our chest drain system, a source of sterile water, a syringe with a 20 or 22 gauge needle, a source of tape, as well as suction, whether it be wall-mounted or portable. Once we have those supplies, let's turn our attention to the components of the chest drain. The first chamber I'm going to look at here, this is actually our collection chamber. You can see the graduated markings for us to document the amount of output from the patient here. This is a really important point, that whenever we insert a thoracostomy tube and hook it up to our chest drainage system, we want to really know how much drainage is coming out when we insert the tube, as well as on an hourly basis. Now, depending on your agency, the excessive amounts of output could be important. It may indicate we need to go to the operating room to explore for possible ongoing bleeding. So follow your agency's protocols on the recommendations for appropriate amount of output. After the collection chamber, let's turn our attention to the next chamber over here, which is going to be our water seal chamber. The water seal chamber basically functions as a one-way valve. It allows the escape of air from the chest cavity without entraining it back into the patient. So we would fill this water seal chamber up to the 2 centimeter mark, and then that will make our water barrier or water seal. A couple other functions of the water seal chamber is that there's a float ball on the bottom in here, and when the patient has normal respirations, you may see this rise and fall. And that's just showing the changes in intrathoracic pressure as the patient breathes. And lastly, the water seal chamber can also tell us if the patient has an air leak. Down below here we have these numbers 1 through 5, 1 being a slight leak and 5 being severe. If there's a lot of bubbling, whether intermittent or continuous, it may indicate a leak and we need to troubleshoot the system. And finally, the last chamber we'll look at here is our suction control chamber. Now there are a couple of different types of chest tube drainage systems on the market. This particular one is called a wet drain system. What that means is I have to actually instill water to fill it up to this 20 centimeter mark. It is that column of water that provides the amount of suction, negative 20 centimeters of suction. When we hook it up to the patient at that point, it's what's called water sealer or gravity drainage. If I hook it up to wall suction, then now I have the patient on suction. It will help facilitate the removal of air and fluid from the chest drainage system. So that's it. That's a quick overview of the components of the chest drain system. Let's take a look at one that's set up now and how it operates. Okay, so here we are. We're back with our chest drainage systems, and I want to just point out a couple more features before we turn on our suction to our chest drain system here. You'll notice I have this other chest drainage system over here, and on the back I have this tubing in a bag. This tubing is what connects to my thoracostomy tube, or the chest tube that the provider is putting into the patient. We really want to strive to keep this end sterile. So I recommend while you're setting up your chest drain to keep it into the package and to keep the protective cap on top until you're ready to use it and hand it to the provider. Also, on the back here, the second tube is the tube for filling the water seal chamber. In this particular model, it comes with a funnel. When I fill this funnel, I'll lower this down to kink the tubing. And while difficult to see on the video, there's a little hash mark here that indicates how much to fill it up to. Once I fill this up, I'll raise it up and it will dump the fluid into my water seal chamber. And like on this one, it'll fill it exactly to the 2 centimeter mark. Now, should you accidentally overfill the system, not to worry. On the back side of this, there are a couple of ports where you can use that syringe to withdraw the excess amount of fluid, both for the water seal chamber and for the suction control chamber. So next, with the suction control chamber, there is a fenestrated plug on the top, which I'll remove here, and that is actually where you're going to pour in your sterile water. Once again, as we talked about, you're going to fill to the 20 centimeter mark, and then that's it. Periodically, if the patient has the chest drain for a long period of time, you may need to add additional fluid in there, so you want to periodically check to see how much actual water is in the suction control chamber. But now that we have that hooked up, we're ready to connect to our patient. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave it on the table for right now, but we always want to keep the chest drainage system usually below the level of our patient. But just to demonstrate, I'm going to hook this up and turn on our suction. now you can see that there's actually a lot of bubbling going on in my suction control chamber. And if you can actually see, there's a little bit of an air leak here that's bubbling down here in my water seal chamber. That is the float ball we were talking about that sometimes you will see periodically rise and fall, which is called tidling on there. Now ideally we want the suction to be more gradual if possible. The more vigorous the suction, it does less good, just evaporates more water. So something along the lines of a gentle boil is really all you need for the suction control chamber. And that's it. That's a basic tutorial on setting up our chest drain system. I hope this video has been helpful. Join me in my next video and we'll talk about some of those common pitfalls with managing a chest drain system. Until then, bye for now.